Any comments, any questions, any contradictions? Yes, Gylene, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I was late. Any case, I did get the summarize, and thank you, Tigor, for clarifying the voice of many waters. I did not understand that fully before, but it reminded me so much of Mike when we first met because I was going through my mind, Lord, is he the one? And I keep opening the Bible and reading, and it's always the waters, the waters. So I was foolish, or just I just read the the meaning of waters through Mike. And but now that meaning has expanded to the tribes, the nations, the gospel being preached. So maybe even before then, that was the real message. But still, it reminds me of Mike because he was I felt like he was the evangelist of the congregation. He would go from several miles, and then there's this um, family that he would go and teach, and then the neighbors would come, and that would be the congregation that's born in that area. So uh, the voice of many waters is such a clarification of what who else needs to hear the gospel. um, Maybe that's why when I'm now here in Palawan, I'm concentrating on tribes, and um, tribes that have heard of Christ, but they know him only as prophet. But there are tribes that don't know anything about him as yet. So they're still doing some, but it is a big sacrifice to physically just going to them. I haven't gone myself, but there are others who, just like, I think in your area, is it Sarah who goes to um, Costa Rica, and she said, I need to go like several miles with streams and mountains to cross. So it takes effort and time and finances to put the focus on building the kingdom. So the many waters is still going on, and evangelizing them takes a challenge, especially since you said it's not just the hearing the word and then preaching the word or doing the Bible study, but it's living the word. It's mind and heart, that the word has to be in our minds, planted, and in our hearts, that we do it naturally without even already thinking, because that's the nature of our Father and the Holy Spirit in us. So it's a challenge to be Christ-like, and that's what's asked of us in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Gylene. You just summarized the whole message. Thank you. Any other thoughts, any other insight into this subject? If you have a different understanding of voice of many waters, I would like to hear. I would love to hear. Yes, Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, somebody knocked on my door right after you started. I got taken away from the study for a while. So I don't know if I'm way off.
Oh, oh, oh.
But I was thinking about many waters, and you mentioned Niagara Falls, but I was also thinking about how would men in the first century have had any experience, or what would come into their minds when they think about that word, many waters? They had seafaring men at the time, and there were ships that went far away. If you've ever been by the beach when the waves are rough, you know it's a loud sound. And it's violent. It can be a violent sound of, and the voice of many waters uh, for a seaman, a seafaring man, could be during like a stormy time. Even the disciples got into a boat and they had such a rough sea that they were starting to take on water. And they wake up Christ and say, "Don't you care? We perish." So the sound of the water on that night would have been very loud. And when someone would travel around around the Cape, southern part of the continent, whether it be Africa or America, Cape Hope, or Cape Horn, those are extremely violent waters. It's the two oceans kind of like coming together and converging, and it's tumultuous and it's loud and it's fearful. So, are people fearful when they hear the gospel? People were fearful when they heard the voice of Christ speaking, as in you pointed out, the voice of many waters in Revelation chapter 1. It can be a fearful thing to come to terms with the gospel. It can be frightening, as many waters are frightening and terrifying, and as the disciples were terrified. On another occasion, Peter steps out of the boat and the waves are rough, and he loses confidence and he starts to sink. That's another application of rough waters. But when you say many waters, I guess the implication is more like expansive. Waters from this place, waters from that place.
Sure.
And but the sound of the voice of Christ, the sound of many waters, the sound of the gospel is a very sobering and fearful thing for someone to be told your life as you once knew it is over. You're coming to the truth of the gospel. You're coming to the voice of many waters. And the message of the gospel will change you forever. And it is fearful. And it is flowing. And it is intimidating and unfathomable. So I'm sorry I missed a large portion tonight. Somebody came to my door.
Yeah, it's all right. You can catch up to the recording. Tomorrow, I hope, God willing, would upload it. But the voice of many waters have force in them, right? It's a power, it's a strength. and it's overwhelming. It can, they can, the force of many waters can crush. I think that's what you are alluding.
Yeah.
Let's quickly go to uh, mm, Shalomville, either Scarlett or Hal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, this is Scarlett. I'm sorry I missed the last maybe 15 minutes. I had someone come to my to my
Oh,
here.
it's okay.
No, so I missed out when you got into the interaction. So maybe someone's already asked this, or maybe you defined it already earlier in your session. Did you define how do you define true gospel? That's all. That was the question. And
Yeah.
maybe you already defined it. I don't know.
Yeah, the true gospel, in the old school, we were told about the news about the future 1,000-year rule. I I have a different understanding. It's consistently across the epistles and acts. It's always affirmed and reaffirmed that that is the person, teachings, and example and the warfare of Jesus Christ or Yeshua. The person, what all he is, and his teachings and his example, how he lived and showed us the way, and his warfare, how he fought. So that's all uh, comprises the true gospel. If something outside of that, uh, it is not considered true gospel. But for his teachings, everything to understand all these four things, you need the whole breadth of Bible. You cannot delink. Uh, you need everything, every chapter, every book from Genesis to Revelation to understand what he's saying. So you need whole Bible, but the the words that came out of his mouth, covered by four gospels, those are called words of life, words of eternal life. They are different and distinct from rest of the Bible. That's the new covenant. Those are the terms and conditions of new covenant. That's a very very short summary that I can come up with. What is true gospel?
Okay, thank you. I know the Protestants and others, their true gospel's even shorter, right? It's Christ, he was born and he died and he rose again, died for our sins, rose again in 3 days, and so that's their version of the gospel, and that's part of it, definitely, but big part of it. But it certainly doesn't include his millennial reign and what comes after that. I mean, the good news, that's very good news. Gospel is good news, right? Good news about
That
his
is, yes,
kingdom, about and uh, and the things that and beyond. Good news about the millennium and beyond. Second
that is correct.
resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, the sum total of his teachings is actually good news for who would embrace him. It's bad news for to those who would reject him or despise him or reduce him. If you want to bite the hand that is trying to save you from falling into a valley, that wouldn't go well for that for you. Like a hand has come and trying to hold you up from falling to the deep valley. You'll be crushed to pieces, but you can take advantage of that hand trying to pull you to the ground, but you can bite that hand. What happens? Hand would let loose and you would fall. That is how, if you approach in a in a negative way to your Savior. I'm going to emphasize this lot and lot, both in Gospel of Luke presentations as well as here. Better not say or do anything against him, our Savior. This is the highest good. Let us not confront him. Let us cooperate with him. Let us yield him. Even if you are not able to understand all his teachings, even if you are not able to live and obey all his teachings, but your attitude is super important, how you approach him. I think that's where for silly reasons people may lose out and subjected to strong delusion. So I'm going to teach that because some people are affected by the strong delusion, which I know. So sorry if I'm coming up as harsh, but that's a necessary harsh, I think. I'm done. Any other? Yeah, go ahead. Scarlett, you have something?
I'm sorry, I was just going to say with strong delusion, are you referring to strong delusion as to who and what Yeshua Christ is about?
Yeah.
Or is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Strong
Thessalonians.
delusion. Okay.
You're familiar, right? Do you want to go there? Let's go there.
Sure. Why not?
That's important verse. Like I understood in theory, now I'm seeing it in practically. See, the time would come when you really see this thing in going in operation. So Thessalonians 2. So let's pick up from 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. So somebody is causing people to perish. He is administering spiritual poison into the minds and hearts of the Christians. This power is doing something to them, is injecting poison into their hearts and minds because they received not the love of truth. The word truth is an allusion or euphemism for Christ. Because they received not the love of truth. It can be the person of Christ, or teachings of Christ, or examples of Christ, or his warfare. All of that included when you say love of truth. If you are not doing that, you are attacking him, that they might be saved. He came as a savior to save us. You are holding malice against him and doing all kinds of fight against him, despising him. And verse 11 is what God is telling us. For this cause, God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. So, when God sends this strong delusion, I don't know if you use this phrase, we use this all the time in India. God would pull the fuses from the persons. If he pulls the fuses, you are no longer able to think properly. You are not able to reason properly. You are under delusion. That is your spiritual description. People under strong delusion, you can't reason with them and bring gospel to them. At this point, God has withdrawn the voice of bridegroom and voice of bride from them. So they go and believe a lie. So they pick up some false doctrine that they should believe a lie, and they refuse to come out of that lie. Verse 12, that they all might be damned or judged who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So the strong delusion is an important uh, thing we should all be aware of if we receive not the love of truth or refuse to believe the truth. There are lots of ways we can resist and despise the Savior and the work of Savior. Uh, but that's what God says. Make the tree all the way to the good or make it all the way bad. There is no status quo. God is making some tree all the way to bad, is pushing you to be completely bad. That is strong delusion. Or he's pushing you all the way to good. What is the difference between these two people? It's direction, it's attitude. That's my understanding. I don't know if that helps you a little bit about these verses.
Sure, it helps me understand where you're coming from. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll go to who is next, Marlene.
Yeah, to add to that, I've seen that too, where people that have any bitterness or anger or unforgiveness, it's like they attack people. Reality is they are attacking God, but people are kind of the scapegoat. And yeah, they're really angry with God, or they're bitter with God, or just not forgiving. It's amazing how your mind can be so deceitful and thinking you're making a stand against something bad when it's really you're the problem and you're setting up the wrong thing here. Yeah, it's you really gotta, like you said, love the truth and pray for truth and not be deceived. Really appreciate your message, this voice of many waters. I mean, the scriptures you brought all together is just really fascinating. I don't think I grasp it all. I have to go back and listen and think more on these things. You gave a different view on Psalm 19, where it talks about the heavens declaring the glory of God and the firmament showing his handiwork. And I've looked at that before, and I would see all the physical things, how much everything in the heavens declare God's great power and love and care for us. And if we didn't have the sun and the rain, we would not have life. And you see all these things. And they don't speak a word, but yet their speech goes out. Those physical things. So the things you brought in about the voice of many waters and the bridegroom and the bride through this, it gave me a deeper perspective on this psalm. So thank you.
Thank you for the feedback, Marlene. That helps me as a presenter. Don Wales told me, don't call yourself teacher. So I'm calling myself presenter. So it helps the presenter. Mm, this kind of feedback, something that helped you or something that did not help you, that helps me to uh, prepare my messages differently if necessary. Yeah, we are called heavens. We are called handiwork of God. So that whole Psalm 19, we can understand using Semyon in the second layer. It's rich and beautiful. We are handiwork of God, and we declare the glory of God by taking out gospel. And the heavens declare the glory of God. Firmament, his handiwork, can be understood quite differently now. With the New Testament, it gives and brings a new perspective. It's a new wine. Cannot just fit. It doesn't fit in the old wineskin. It just bursts out. But thank you for the feedback. Let's go to Guyleen.
Could I interject one comment here?
Please go ahead.
And the spiritual body, which God makes very clear that he has teachers in his spiritual body. These are gifts that he has given us. So I have no problem with calling you teacher as other people that are presenting. So that's my little thought on that.
Yeah, his take is some people objected in the past. If you call somebody teacher, that means they're obligated to listen to the teacher. That means they understand when if you say I am a teacher, that they understand that I am claiming an authority over you, which they hate. So you teach what you teach, and if we like, we take it, or if we don't like, we reject it. But moment you say you are a teacher, then you are putting an obligation on us and usurping an authority over us. And I told Don it is completely scriptural. To teach is a teacher. Oh no, because of the bad teachers and bad examples and all the heat and all the wounds that they are still licking those wounds. They don't want to hear the word teacher. So then I said, okay, what should I call myself? I asked Don. He said, like presenter. Okay, that's where we are. Presenter. I'm a presenter now. Officially, that's official vocabulary in this Zoom room. If I go out of this Zoom room, I'll still call myself teacher because that's I'm teaching.
Be all things to all people, right?
Yeah.
Even though we are told each of us are to be teachers and get off the milk and use the meat and be a teacher. So anyway, that's enough. We're off on a squirrel here. Thanks.
Yeah, you can't get away from the authority of teacher. If teacher is like 1 in 1 million chance possibility, if the teacher is exactly teaching what Christ wants him to teach, or the words of Christ, in that case, teacher has authority. It's not the person of teacher. It's the teaching of the teacher. If it is 100% matching with teachings of God the Father and Christ, then that teaching has authority over you. But unfortunately, in the past, some people usurp that to the person of teacher. Person of teacher is nobody. God can use even a donkey to speak. Person is nobody. Don't look to the person, look to the teaching. Not don't look to the messenger, look to the message. Only exception is Christ. The person is equally important as his teachings. That's only case for Christ. All of us, we are just vessels in the hands of God. So we have to kind of adjust to the pressures of the Zoom room because of the bad examples of somebody did in the past. People are still affected, have those sensitivities and wounds. So we have to accommodate and bend a little bit, which I have no problem. Let's go to Guyleen.
Marlene was talking about strong delusions, and it just reminded me here. The pastor, he became the president of the whole ministerial, and he gave a statistical questionnaire of what sins or challenges this are the pastors facing. And the biggest and the highest is pride. Second is bursts of anger. And the last is lust. So lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh. So in that regard, I guess that's also what we have to be very aware of. And then with the example of, there's an example I can give. There's a church in Mindanao. He started right, and then he started to segregate himself, and then he created his own church, and it became quite big. It was physically beautiful, but it was rotting inside. Why? Because he started calling himself the Son of God, as in replacing Christ. And then he sort of, okay, uh, because all the others were all the other pastors and religious leaders were already saying, you can't say that. You're not Christ. But he was already in that delusion. And it was strong because he had such a big outreach. His hands were already in California. He had hoodwinked young women, and as rumor has it, he had, I guess it was like a cult there in the US, that the women get raped and then have abortion, and this was all hidden, and he could not be touched because in the area where he is used to be also the president's area, same city. But when he went to the US and one of the members escaped, and then she realized he was being used because they took her passport and then they would go around asking money and something like that. And the government, the US, cracked down on him, and there was a complaint on him in court. And so he hid back in the
Jalen's internet is pretty bad.
took like 2 years
You're breaking up, Gail.
year. They couldn't find him. He had done, but I'm breaking up.
Okay, I will edit that and remove it later on.
So, in any case,
You're breaking, Guyleen, not coming through.
the good news, he's been caught. Okay.
So next presentation, we would be dealing with the voice of thunder. That's also very interesting topic. Thunder, voice of thunder. It's a language of storm. So each phrase brings wealth of concepts and thoughts together. The voice from heaven has given us from one perspective, and the voice of many waters, and then voice of thunder. And then we will pick up the harp and harps, what the harp means. And then we would go to third verse, that is new song. And there are only 5 verses in this chapter. Then we will go to chapter 7 and then wrap it up there. So we would still be in at least 2 to 3 months. We would still be in this series. Then after that, if you have any preference, we can start a different topic. Keep thinking. I would like to start Mystery Babylon, chapter 17 and 18, if you are interested. Otherwise, we can start any other prophecy subject. Mystery Babylon is chapter 17 and 18 of Revelation. It has somewhat 97 or close to 100 attributes in just 2 chapters about Mystery Babylon. So that will take a while, but that is a worth reading. It's a worth studying subject, Mystery Babylon. That will be a different series. These are all interrelated, right? Many years ago, I used to study Mystery Babylon as a silo, a separate independent topic, nothing to do with 144,000. 144,000 has nothing to do on what the Olivet prophecy. Like that, those are all compartments. Now I'm seeing there are no silos. Everything is connected to everything else. Yes, Olivia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Tagore. This is the first time I'm sitting in with this teaching here, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm finding it very interesting. So I really like the way you related to the many waters being, different people, many nature. I hadn't thought of that, and that's a really good insight on it. So when I did read those passages, because I didn't quite understand it, so you take it at that simple, superficial level of understanding. So I'm thinking, well, this is God. He's describing what he sounds like when he speaks, right? So one of the thoughts I would think of when I read that, 'cause my husband used to be a musician, so I'm very familiar with all these, the microphone and the recordings and all that. And so this idea of many waters, that sound, so that the thought was, I wonder if it sounds like reverb, putting reverb on a voice where you get this booming kind of echoey sound. The person. So I thought, well, I wonder if that's what it's describing. So that's just a superficial, the entry level understanding. So the more you study the scriptures, all these other passages open up, and I really like that. And the other thought I'd like to say is I don't have any issues with somebody being a teacher. What we're told not to do is don't be the teacher, but you can be a teacher, and you're doing a great job, Tagore. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Olivia. Appreciate your feedback. I would like to hear more insight into musical instruments, either from you or from your husband, because I'm not a musician. I can't play any instrument. Sometimes even the primary physical layer can help us understand a bit more. Yes, go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, right. It wouldn't be my husband because unfortunately he's passed on. I'm
Oh,
not a musician either. I have some familiarity with music and that, but not a whole lot. But it's fascinating because the Bible does talk about music a lot, and describing things. Like even when the priests were to sing in the temple, is to be with one voice. And there again, that's something to look into because I find it interesting. Because one of the things that we like to do, and then when I say we, I mean us human beings, society in general, when they sing, they like harmonics, harmony. Let's do harmony. The more harmony, the better. But when you have a lot of harmony, what you actually end up having is a lot of different voices. You don't have just one voice. And I don't know if that's what's referring to. Is God saying, no, I don't want harmony. I just want sing one note. And, whether it be, 120 priests or whatever, just that one note. So I don't know. It's something it's kind of rolling around in my head. So I'd like to look at that. Thanks.
yeah, those are interesting uh, thoughts. You are opening up some of the areas I have not considered. Uh, yeah, thank you. I might begin to think in that direction. I'm studying a little bit on harp. I'm watching YouTube videos on people playing harp, and they're telling their experience with harp. As they strike, each chord produces a different sound, and uh, harp, we already visited this verse in the Old Testament. Each of the parables, as Christ is teaching, that is alluded to playing on harp. There's a straight uh, verse connecting both. So parables are somehow related to playing the harp. So each chord produces a different sound. So they simultaneously use different strings. It's not one string at a time. So I want to see the physical layer, how this instrument works, and somehow related to the true gospel. Again, the voice of harp is uh, it's very loud and clear that it is gospel. Trumpet, not so much. Trumpet is more like a warning or a war cry, but harp is always associated with a healing message, healing aspect of the gospel, as well as parables which Christ gave us. So let's uh, let's think along these lines when we come to harp discussion. I want more insight from all of you. Let's go to Peggy.
I would like to talk about harmonies.
Go ahead, please.
I have sung in choirs for 30 years, in quartets, duets, that kind of thing. Okay. And I took saxophone when I was a kid, and I'm very bad at that. So, harmonies are, you were talking about many voices, okay? But there are many voices working together. You have to listen to the other person. You have to you can't just sing on your own. You have to be listening to other people. You have to blend with the other people that you're singing with. I tended to be kind of a strong voice in that I was very solid. And a lot of people would listen to me, but I also had to listen to them and modify my voice to work with their voices. And it's everybody working together to bring forth this beautiful sound. And if people aren't trying to blend with the other people around them, to cooperate with them and moderate my voice being too loud and that voice being too soft, you have to moderate and you have to work together to become a beautiful sound. If you have everybody kind of singing what they think is proper and not listening to other people, that's where you get more of the discord in the grade school choir singing. Okay, it's working together and listening and watching the conductor. You have to watch the conductor because he's telling you what to do. So it's like all our voices working together to do what God wants us to do, if you want to look at it that way. And if you're not working with the people around you, plus watching what the director is doing and helping each other and that kind of thing, then you're not going to get a beautiful melody. You're not going to get Handel's Messiah done beautifully. You're getting Handel's Messiah done by grade school kids who don't know how to do this yet. It's music is a wonderful thing. It's it's a teacher. It helps your my brain doesn't work anymore. It helps your attitude. It calms the spirit. It's just a wonderful thing. But when you listen to beautiful music and you watch that orchestra with all the instruments and all those people, it's a beautiful thing, and you have to really it's all everybody working together, and you have to watch the director, who is God, who is bringing all these instruments. And I mean, if you're playing The harp, you probably only play a couple of measures here and a couple of measures there. You don't always play the whole thing. Violins, they get to play the whole thing all the time, you know. So you have to count and you have to work with each other. So that's the many voices. That's my opinion on music.
What do you call that person with the small stick? He does this.
The
He's
conductor,
conductor.
the maestro, the conductor, he's got many
Okay.
names. He's the leader. He's the guy you're looking at. He's keeping the beat, so you all know where you are in the music. Okay, and if you've ever looked at sheet music, there's all those little black dots. They all mean something, and where they're placed, and how many beats you get, and all that kind of stuff. And he's got a uh, the score. It's called the score. He's got a musical score. It's the main thing, and it has all the instruments parts on there. And
So
he's
he
looking
knows
at.
all the instruments.
He knows what they sound like. He knows what the violins are doing. He knows what the tubas are doing. He knows what the basses are doing. He knows what the percussion's doing, and he can see it all in 27 lines down the page or whatever it is. Okay? So he knows that's what the score is. Now each instrument gets their part. They don't get to see everybody else's part. They just see their part in the music, and they know what they're playing by the music, the black dots and the little tails that come up, and where it's placed, and they're all counting, okay, to 4 beats in a measure or whatever, and they're all counting and they're all playing it. And once they learn the score or they learn their part, everybody gets together and they start playing it, and you know where you are because you can read the music and you can see where your part is in this, and you know where to rest and not play, and you know when to play this and you know when to play that. It's a fascinating, I mean, music is a wonderful thing, and it's just fun. And the first time you get 4 people, they all learn their part. And the first time you get together and you all start singing together and it comes together and it's perfect, you get lost in the music, and then all of a sudden it all falls apart because you're listening to, wow, that really sounds great, and then you forget where you in the part, and the whole thing falls apart, and then you have to start over. But it's really a fun thing to put music together and make it work. So, it's kind of like getting all the pieces of the table. You've got the top and the legs, and all of a sudden you put it all together, and wow, look at that. So music is
Very,
a wonderful thing.
yeah, very insightful the way you are describing. I'm almost tempted to say the Christ like maestro
Yes,
orchestrating all his people.
yes, pretty much. He's up there directing, telling us what to do, and if you do your part, the music will be pretty. If you screw up your part and you hit the wrong note, the music's not so great. I
And
was
and
really good with the saxophone hitting all the wrong notes.
I see. I
Singing, I
also
was good at.
notice this maestro would not look at any of these charts, any of the music sheets.
Oh, no. I mean, by the time he's directing it, he knows exactly what everybody's doing. And then he goes by how he feels the music should. I mean, it tells you when to go louder and softer, but it's up to him to decide how loud, how soft, by the way he waves his arms around, okay? It tells you what you're going to do. And if you watch him, he'll be pointing and telling the violins when to come in. He'll be pointing at something else, and um it's something you learn as you go along. It's fascinating. You should watch some videos on conducting, or videos that show the rehearsals, if you can find them, of
Yeah,
somebody's
rehearsals. Okay.
orchestra, where you play this part and you can start it. The measures are numbered, okay? So you'll be working on a part of the music and you'll start at measure number 127, or okay, we're starting at, 180, and everybody starts right in the middle of a big crescendo or something. There's it's not just people thinking they know what they're doing. The conductor up there, he knows what every different instrument is supposed to be doing, and by the time he's directing it, he knows, he goes by feel. Different conduct. You can play the same piece of music and have 4 different conductors and get 4 different sounds. There was a piece of music that it was very common in the church in worldwide for everybody to use this common song that we all loved. And I sang it hundreds of times. And then I went to Nova Scotia for the feast. And the conductor there had a completely different way of presenting the song. And it was very effective and it was very moving the way he did it. And there was a part where we always came in really loud and he had us come in very soft and then build the music. And I had the hardest time not coming in loud there because it was so normal for me. But it was interesting to see the way a different conductor with different ideas, and it changed the whole piece of music, in my opinion, to the better, I think. So there you go.
Yeah,
Peggy, that's a
good.
great visual. That's a great visual of any gathering of believers. If they keep their eyes on that conductor, then they'll have much more effective and beautiful. They'll make beautiful music in their interaction.
Yes,
Yeah, thanks.
good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also you brought out about the emotion behind it. I mean, you don't just hit the notes. There is emotion in there, and that comes through too when you're
Mhm.
playing and performing. And also, you got to practice before you get there.
Yes, unfortunately.
You have to practice and know what your part is supposed to be doing before you all come together and play.
Well, see, when I was a kid, we had my parents believed in music. Okay, so everybody played an instrument. Me being number 4, I didn't really get to choose because we already had certain instruments in the house. And mom told us we had to play piano. Okay, so Holly stuck with the piano, but if I quit piano, then I had to play the saxophone, which my brother Mike played in high school. And that was fine. So I started playing the saxophone, and I was practicing my music in the living room one day, and the dog ran away up the stairs and as far away as she thought she could get from me. And we're talking a little black poodle, howled. I had a really hard time practicing after that. She didn't like my saxophone. I was terrible at it anyway. So I can't count. That's my problem. I have to hear it. I can't count to save my life. So I play my music by ear.
Did you take piano first before you did
Yeah, I
saxophone?
took about a year of piano. So I know what the notes are, but I can pluck something out, but I'll get the rhythm wrong every time.
It seems like if you've got the piano background, reading both the treble and the bass clef, you pick up other instruments easier because it's just typically one or the other.
Yeah, my saxophone, I played an alto sax. That was all treble clef, the top one. And if you can't play, if the trumpets play a piece of music and I play with my saxophone a piece of music, we're reading the same notes, but we're not getting the same notes because the trumpets are a B flat instrument, I believe, and a saxophone is an E flat. So when I play an F sharp, it sounds different than when the trumpet plays an F sharp. So we can't play out of the same piece of music. So the music is adjusted to the type of instrument you've got. So when we're playing in an orchestra, there's you can't just change music with somebody else. They have to be in your key. I think flutes and saxophones and trumpets and trombones, and those are all in B flat. I don't really remember anymore, but I used to play with my friends, all played B flat instruments. And then I went over to stay with them, and the parents had us all get together and play, and I was playing the same notes, and I was a discord for sure in that. So because it wasn't written for me. So it's an interesting study on what Scarlett was saying. That's why you've got teachers, and you've got um, all the different gifts that Marlene was talking about. Okay, and they all have to work together, and they have to play their parts the way they're given. And then if they play their part the way it's given, then they'll all work together. So the prophecy people have their deal. Don and I are more like facilitators, service people. We do our parts. The people that actually can teach something and make sense of it, they've got their part. The elders and all the different the mercy people do their mercy thing. Music is a really good description of God's plan in many ways. So it's very interesting.
So to me, what maestro does is like a strange sign language.
Yes. Yes. He raises I'm in the dark. He holds up his hand. Let's see. I will turn is my video on? Yeah. So when the maestro brings his hand up like this, he wants you to get louder. He softens it up and he swings it out like this. You're playing louder. He points at this guy. He points at that guy with his little pencil, his little thing. And it's all, Don could have described it better because he played in the orchestra, but there's a lot of sign language involved in it. You learn to read, and each conductor is different. Some people, they beat out, it's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, or it's 1, 2, 3. It depends on the music. And one conductor will do it this way, other conductors will do it like this, and all that kind of stuff. So it's you learn to read each conductor and learn what he wants and how he thinks and that kind of thing. But the conductor's the one that puts the emotion into the music in a lot of ways. It's the way he directs. He brings it out of you, and it, especially in singing, he can really bring out a lot from people by the way he conducts it. And God does the same thing. He works with each person, and he brings out the best in them. And that's what the conductor, the maestro, does. It's a very fascinating kind of thing. I love orchestras. My plan in Kansas City is to go to the Kansas City Symphony, hopefully, if they're playing. That's the one thing I want to do down there.
One thing I noticed, the maestro, they sweat a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're up there waving their arms and jumping around and doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And they're pulling from, it's work to pull from everybody and get the best out of everybody. It's a tough job. Not everybody can do it.
Yeah.
And you can tell. Okay, well, I've wasted enough of your time.
No, that's good. That's relevant. We are talking about musical instruments. We will soon be going into harps. So this is a good foundation discussion.
It's watch some symphonies if you can get the rehearsal videos,
I have gone and seen
The song leaders at church, it's a lot of them aren't conducting. The piano players are actually doing the conducting when you get down to it, And some of the guys they get for song leaders back in Worldwide, they didn't have a clue. They just got up there and waved their arms, didn't know a thing about what they were doing. So, it was the piano player that was really picking the tempo and doing that. Some of them knew what they were doing. Other ones did not. So it's
Yeah, if you've noticed that it's the conductor who is, or the maestro,
yeah.
who is he's adding the fervor and the feeling,
Yes.
and it's being conveyed to the instruments as they're being played.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he gets vigorous and he gets almost violent in certain parts.
Uh-huh.
So that the people who are on the violins or the people who are playing trumpets, they respond to his motion when he jerks his body and he sticks his arm out towards them.
That's right. It's like, you come in, It's
Yeah,
your turn, But
it's
yeah,
it's a language. He's speaking to each section with a language of motion with his hands.
Yes.
And with leaning forward with his face. And he's it's just very, very intense and emotional. Yeah, he's sweating. Yeah, you're right, Tagore. He sweats a lot. Because this communication method demands a lot of energy. And not just anybody can do it.
That's right. Tagore was saying it's like a sign language. It is. It really is. There's a little video out of this toddler, maybe 2 years old, standing in the back of a choir rehearsal. Okay. The mom must have been in the choir and the little kid is kind of running around and he's standing back there, just maybe 2 years old, watching, and he's standing in the back, swinging his arms like this and bringing out the music and doing this and conducting and with the facial expressions and everything, because facial expressions is part of it,
I've seen that video.
Isn't that the most adorable thing? But it's like he understands at 2 years old what's going on up there in a lot of ways. So
I got the feeling from watching him that he's seen it over and over again.
Yes. And I can imagine what the conductor, the choir director, up there, he must be a very expressive man. But yeah, it has a lot to do with he brings the emotion out in the music. He makes the song, he brings all these people and he brings the emotion out of the instruments, the players, by his interpretation. And during a rehearsal, you'll be playing along and then he'll cut, stop. You guys, you have to do this. And I want more of this. I want more of this. And sometimes they'll explain why and what they're, it depends on the conductor,
More cowbell. I need more cowbell.
That's right. Hit it like you mean it, So, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the background. I loved choir rehearsals. That was the best part, in my opinion, because you actually got to work with and develop it into something that really sounded good. So, yeah, I loved it. I was part of a barbershop group for a little while before I realized it's their whole life. What we considered, our whole life was like church. For the barbershop women's choir, that's what they did. They dedicated their life to fundraisers and going to rehearsals and all this kind of stuff. It was the same thing. So I couldn't join the group because I just couldn't split my attention that much, but I loved it. So it's music is a fascinating thing, but you learn more if you watch the conductor, if you can get some rehearsal videos. It's really a fascinating thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think about music. I miss it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution and insight into this.
Yeah, it has a lot of power. It has the power to change a person's actions. You can be stirred up and anxious because of music, right? You can be agitated,
Yep.
or you can be sedated.
Mm-hmm.
You can find joy. People cry when they listen to some kind of music,
Oh, yeah.
like like
A
an
lot of
opera.
emotion in music.
Like you could, some people can sit at an opera and tears come down because of the sounds of the opera,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But if you don't understand opera, you're not going to get that.
Yeah, you have to study the opera beforehand so you know what they're saying, because half of it's in Italian or German or something.
It's an acquired flavor, right?
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm more of a symphony kind of person. I would go to the ballet for the music, not for the dancing. I am totally obsessed with the music itself.
Oh,
I love harmony.
I would go to the ballet, but I would just sit there and cry all night.
Some people do. Well, not maybe for the Nutcracker, but you know. Yeah. Yeah, ballet isn't my thing, but I would love to just sit and listen to the symphony. I go to the symphony and they start and whatever position I'm in, I'm probably there when they stop. I just stop and I'm so fascinated by the music. I'm just mesmerized, you know, and I don't move the whole time, basically. So Don's like that with TVs, but he's played in the orchestra for, you know, a gazillion years. So he plays a string bass. I used to play my voice more. I was better at that.
Next 2 to 3 presentations, I would like to hear more about harp also. Harps, you're welcome to bring additional insight into that instrument.
Hmm. So when the Bible talks about stringed instruments, is it talking about the harp?
One of the stringed instruments is harp, but sometimes the Hebrew language itself is so loose. Uh, they have like multiple words. Uh, they have harp and timbrel, and harp and some other word. It essentially like they're same. They're slightly different, maybe in size or shape, but they're all stringed instruments. Sometimes there are an instrument on 10 strings. There's a different Hebrew word. So they have 3 categories. First is stringed, second is mm, wind instruments, and third is percussions like drums. Those are primarily 3 categories of Israelite slash Judean music instruments, especially for temple and praising God. So the list is about 2 dozen names.
There's a really good video that I like. It's an old gospel song. It's called "Were You There When They Crucified My Lord?" And the band has a giant harp. The girl's introducing the song. She's playing a massive harp with her hand, 2 hands at the same time, hitting different strings with both hands at the same time. And there's violins, and I think it's about a 5-piece band playing, maybe. But the whole song is about, it's a gospel song. it asks the question, were you there at the scene of the crucifixion? And then they ask, were you there when they laid him in the tomb? And the last question is, were you there when he rose up from the grave? It's a beautiful song. You could play that. It's about 5 minutes long.
Yeah, I'm looking for one video at least to bring audience close to harp. Send me
Or
the link.
if you play that one, it's not going to be just harp music. It's going to be a combination of harp and music with violins. But you can watch it. I mean, just for your own pleasure. I'll send you the link.
Okay. I want to play one harp music played over a hymn, some praising God with lyrics. What she is playing, I want lyrics also on the screen, which is definitely praising God. The content should be praising God. So I'm looking, still researching.
Mm-hmm.
When we come to verse 3 of Revelation 14. So there's a lot more for 144,000. I know Rita has asked for this series. What do you think, Rita, about so far about this series?
I am really appreciating it, Tagore. I really, really get a lot out of it. I have to absorb it, though. You know, it takes me a while, but I really appreciate it. Everything.
Thank you. At least I'm
No.
happy if I'm meeting half of your expectations, at least.
Oh yeah, I have three pages of notes from tonight.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I take notes every time because I have to go back. You know, I can't rely on my memory. I can't process it all. So anyway, I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. But yeah, the primary person who asked for the series, at
Yeah,
least
and
that person should be happy.
I never dreamed that it would be this much. I mean, I just assumed we'd go over who they were, the 144,000, if they were the same group or if they were different groups. And this has just been loaded with information. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm so grateful. And I can't wait to go through Revelation 17 and 18.
That would probably blow away your mind.
I'm sure it will.
The fundamental paradigm and assumptions are controversial because I would be starting with a candidate. Who possibly this candidate is? That is controversial, but anyway, I will make a case for that candidate while discussing chapter 17 and 18. This is not my original work. There are pioneers in this subject who went before me. They spent their lifetime on just this topic, Mystery Babylon. So it took many years for me to absorb and saturate myself with that subject. There are 100 different attributes of Mystery Babylon in just 2 chapters. So we would go with every attribute Every word is important. Every verse, every sentence in those two chapters. So it's a good thing. Like if you read it several times, go through those two chapters, so you become super familiar. Then it gets easy for you when we start the discussions and presentations. If you're totally new to those chapters, you would be on shaky ground. The items that Mystery Babylon trades, they're like 2 dozen items. It trades in ivory, silk. You have lots of things, and there are expressions. They are rich, like blue, purple, and fine linen or white linen. You find those expressions in Leviticus, Exodus. You have without Old Testament, it's impossible to understand those two chapters. You have to comb through whole Genesis to Malachi in order to even begin to understand the symbology. It's heavily symbological. It's total semeion, those two chapters. One is the judgment of Hor, second is postmortem. What this Hor was doing, uh, requiring this kind of judgment. So the lamentation is chapter 18, and chapter 17 is the execution of judgment. Those two are two different ways, like God talks about this entity. It's just the amount of information God pushes in those two chapters is just mind blowing and mind boggling. But we will get to that slowly, slow and steady. Any complex subject, take your time, take small portion, and try to examine and take another baby step. So it might take an year, but that's worth spending an year on this subject. I know Alan is saying 1 more year on this topic. I know videos, they do it like in two presentations, they will complete Mystery Babylon. Sometimes 45 minutes, they will complete it. The whole 2 chapters. I mean, basically, they just read through that. This is ever going, ever ongoing, this prophecy.
Yeah, it's I think that the statement you made that it's controversial is true. But so much other parts of Revelation are also controversial. I mean, which part of Revelation is not heavily argued and heavily debated? All of it is debated by people from ages past all through until the future. Yeah. When you talk about the return of Christ, Revelation 19, you read that tonight. Or you read the beginning of the chapter. It's very heavily symbolic, and there's all kinds of space for debate from different people's perspectives.
You're right. Prophecy is that subject where it is very hard to get two Christians agree.
So sometimes I sit and by myself and read it, and then I argue with myself.
You will be sweating a lot, and Charlene comes, what's so going on? I'm arguing with myself.
I just accused myself of being wrong. Oh.
You would be sweating like that maestro.
Yeah.
But see, you would be learning so many things. Not that subject only, like all the paraphernalia, all the connections. Yeah, go ahead, Marlene.
Back to the harp music. Have you heard of Steve and Shirley Reese, Rees? They've done harp music, and I'm pretty sure she's done words from the scripture that go with it.
Would you mind sending a link or the name like that I can Google?
I'll send the name, yeah.
So that I don't misspell.
I sent you a link to Gore, to that one I was telling you about.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got it.
You want to see if that link will open for you. It's a good song to play like around before Passover.